You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, world, and welcome to Tales from Hollywoodland, a veritable feast of movies, television, Broadway, showbiz stories, and even a little bit of news and gossip with Julian Schosberg, Arthur E. Friedman, and Stephen J. Rubin. Today, we're talking with performer Marilyn Michaels, the woman of 1,000 voices. And now, here's Julian.
Our guest today gives the word hyphenate a new meaning. We're talking about a woman who's a comedian, a singer, an actress, an impressionist, a composer, a painter, an author,
and a mother.
And a mother.
And a mother.
And it's Mother Marilyn Michaels.
Hi, boy.
Marilyn, I'm telling you, the idea that people say, well, I came from a musical family means nothing compared to you. Would you explain to the audience and my co-producers what all the people that you came from, that family that was unbelievable as performers?
Yes. No. You want me to tell you that much? Do you think I remember what the hell happened? Are you crazy? How many of there are on there? There are 3 people interviewing me today. Which one is Curly? Okay, listen. You want to hear about my provenance, right? Is that it?
Yes. Your folks, your uncle, yes.
Okay, so my uncle is a great cantor, an iconic cantor, Moshe Oisher. That is a Hebrew name. He was a movie star. There's a film called Raisins and Almonds, which is narrated by Orson Welles, that talks a lot about Moshe in there. He did all those, the iconic Passover Seder, the Moshe Oisher Hanukkah party, where I sang on that. I was 14 years old. I need tissues. I'm going to cry. Mark, get me the tissues. Hello? Yes. And then my mother, Fredela, the iconic female cantoress. Hello. My father, Harold Sternberg, sang with the Metropolitan Opera for 40 years or more, whatever. And he was basso profundo, the senior member of the chorus of the Metropolitan Opera. So I spent most of my childhood, eating bagels and lox at the dress rehearsal of people like Joan Sutherland, when she did Lucia de Lammermoor. And I was the kid unwrapping the Snickers bar, making a lot of noise, So that's my provenance. And I come from a long line of cantors, but you're not going to make me go that far back because I don't remember anything. You know what I'm talking about?
Marilyn, I want to mention something to you, if I may.
And I'm not crazy about altogether. Why are you in this?
Because I'm me. I'm one of the people. Anyway, listen.
Arthur, by the way, was a singer for quite a while.
I want to be, but Marilyn, when I was 12 years old, my first job was at the Ellesmere Caterers in the Bronx, New York, and I was 12 years old, and I worked at the Ellesmere, and I heard so many of those great cantors. I believe Moshe Oisher was one of them. There was Jan Pierce. There was Richard Tucker.
Yes. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
You really know yourself. Jan and Richard were tenors with the Metropolitan Opera. They were very great opera singers. And Roberta Peters. So my mother was the little shotgun and introduced Roberta to the baritone Robert Merrill, yes. And they got married, and the marriage didn't last too long. But this was a group that held together because they were all Jews, and they would, do high holiday, officiated high holiday when they weren't with the Met.
And some of the greatest singers that ever lived.
Yes. There's this interesting story about my dad, because my dad was the choir leader with Moshe, and he was working at the beginning of his show business career. He was working for George Gershwin, And George Gershwin liked him very much and called my dad Shalyapin. Does that name ring a bell? Shalyapin? Shalyapin was the great basso, the Russian basso that ever lived, okay? So he had this nickname for my dad, Shalyapin. And my dad said, listen, it's Yom Kippur. Can I go and do the service? And George Gershwin said, for you, Shalyapin, anything. And he gave him off at the high holidays so Daddy could go and do the choir and officiate and so forth. Nice. I'm very proud of that story. It's a true story.
Wasn't Gershwin taking that off though too? Wouldn't George Gershwin and Ira have celebrated or paid attention to those holidays? I would think.
Well, darling, you should know show business is a religion. Okay?
I understand.
And as far as I know, yes, it is. It is everything. And no, I mean, I'm sure there are some people that in Jewish life that put that first at times. I have a dear friend. He's like a cousin to me. His name is Alan Light, and he was working with Mike Nichols. Julian, where are you?
I'm here.
He was working with Mike Nichols very closely. Alan was working with Mike Nichols, and then Alan became religious, really religious. And he was writing, he was producing for NBC. And as soon as he became religious, Judaism religious, that was really the end of his career as he knew it, because you can't have two gods, and show business is your God. I didn't know I was going to say heavy things today. I didn't plan this like this.
Isn't that kind of what happened to Al Jolson, where he had to deal with the fact that his father wanted him to be a cantor and he wanted to go into show business, so he had that same quandary, right?
No, I don't think that he had that quandary. I think that made for a good movie. You know, that was this or that. Am I going to do this? Or am I going to be at the pulpit on the Rosh Hashanah? And as a matter of fact, Moshe's movies had the same thing. It was one story. And it went around like that. One story. You know, are you going to be a cantor? Are you going to be a jazz singer? You know, and they called it appropriately the jazz singer. And that's what it was about. In my uncle's case, there was some truth to it, because Moshe had gotten a contract to be a leading singer with the Chicago Opera. And also he was out in LA with Louis B. Mayer making a film, and then he got sick and got a heart attack. So it was like God was telling him, you have to be a cantor, right? Because you can't do it. And that's how he interpreted it. I didn't think I'd get into all. It's because of you, Julian. Yes.
I would like to just say one thing here, if I may. Having seen so many of these cantors perform, sing at bar mitzvahs or weddings or whatever.
Yes.
These guys were as great in their own way as Luciano Pavarotti. They were great. I mean, they were great by any standard. So if they ever sang popular songs, you know.
Luciano Pavarotti is not a cantor, was never a cantor.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that their voices were as great as the greats of Pavarotti and others.
Marilyn, when did you first realize that you could imitate others so well? When did that, was it in your young years?
No, it was last week. I got very excited. I did a voice and that was it. Yes, I was 11 or 12, and I would just pick up voices. And who was I doing? I was doing Who's Sorry Now?
Connie Francis.
Who's Sorry Now? Connie Francis. I was doing and Tonight We Are So Far Apart. Bring him back to me. It's Sarah Vaughan.
Vaughan, yeah.
And I was waltzing with my darling to
Patty
the
Page.
Yeah, and then I did it was, I went up for something at the Roxy Theater, where they use a cute little talented kid in the middle of all the choreens, And I auditioned for Roxy Rotherfeld, and I did really well. And then he said, "Do you do impressions?" And he was, up there in the bleachers. It was like a theater in the round. I said, "Yeah, how do you know, Mr. Rotherfeld?" He said, "Well, could you do some impressions for us? Would you do something?" And I said, "The night is bitter, the stars have lost their glitter.
It's the greatest Judy Garland I've ever heard.
Of the man that got away." And I got the job. But my parents wouldn't let me do it because they decided they wanted me to go to school and have a normal childhood. That didn't work out too well.
Marilyn, that is the greatest Judy Garland I've ever heard. You do Connie Bradford, but can you do Kitty Callan and Kay Starr and those people?
No. No, I don't do Kitty Callan, but I'll tell you a Kay Starr story.
Yeah,
you want to hear? You want to hear a story? I was doing a telethon, and we were the young girls coming up, and I was with a friend of mine, Julie Budd, and we're really great singers. But and we were and a great singer named Laurie Beachman, Oliver Sholem, who's departed now. She was great and a jewel of a person. She was a great person. The three of us were having this clique of this, and we were powwowing, and I could see not too far distant, a few feet away, Kay Starr, and she was seething. I will never forget. As a matter of fact, I'm writing another book, and I put this anecdote in my book, Never Forgetting Kay Starr. She was resentful because she was a huge star at the time she hit with the
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune.
For the Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, big, very big. And now we were the young girls coming up, and we didn't know she was alive. I knew who she was because that's my business, to study other actors and other singers. So I knew it. But I'll never forget her resentment towards us. I could feel it. I could see that, and you mentioned her. So I just said I had to tell you that little anecdote about Kay Starr. I felt that
she was also Don Rickles' girlfriend. Did you know that, Marilyn? She was also Don Rickles' girlfriend. Yeah.
No, by the time I worked with Don Rickles, which I did, I opened for him in Las Vegas for several years, but he was already married to Barbara. So,
yes.
No.
He married her in 65. Yes.
No, but I do know who Kay Starr was going with. I know things.
Marilyn, how great was it opening for Don Rickles in Vegas? That'd be great.
Don't you want to know who Kay Starr was really going with?
Sure, please.
Stanley.
Hey, Kaiser. Who?
Stanley. Oh, shit, I forgot his last name. He had a real thing for me. He was Mills Music. Stanley Mills. Yes. Stanley Mills. And he loved me, but it wasn't reciprocal. So she started to go with Stanley Mills. It's in my head. I had to tell you.
In your book that I really enjoyed, How Not to Cook for the rest of your life. In that book,
are you going to hold it up?
I certainly will, but we're not going
Yay!
out.
Yay!
Yeah. Anyhow, in that book, you say that it became a bit of a drag, Las Vegas, because you had to do 2 or 3 shows. There was no union at that point. You didn't get any days off. It must have been really
no days off. No. The first time I worked was with Phil Silvers, great comedian, and I was there for a month, and I did the 2 shows every night. There were no days off at all, and it was exciting, very exciting for me. I got great reviews, and so many stars came in to see us, and that was so marvelous. I don't know. I know we went to some other people. I don't remember how we could do that since we were working constantly. But there were no days off. It was constant. There were no unions, nothing.
You write in the book about two terrific people who give you some great advice, both Jack Benny and Bob Newhart.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Well, with Jack Benny, I got a call. I was at Grossinger's doing a show at Grossinger's, and then some little Kuchelain, some little, yeah, in the Catskills. And then I went to Grossinger's and I did this Catskill thing. And I remember my parents were with me. We were at the pool, and we could hear the loudspeaker. Miss Michaels, we were wanted on the phone. Ed Sullivan is calling you. Pick up the phone, Miss Michaels. And everybody turned around, So I picked up the phone. I spoke to my agent at that time, Ken Martell. He said somebody got sick on the Ed Sullivan live show at Harrah's, Lake Tahoe, and they want you to go out and fill in. Well, I mean, that was the big break there. You wait to hear that kind of thing. It's so Hollywood, So the next day I packed and my dad went with me and we went to Tahoe, and it was a fabulous experience. I mean, they had showgirls. There was a whole thing of showgirls, and they taught you how to, the girls took me under what to do. Oh, darling, you have to go to this Miss Sue. She's fabulous. She'll pound off everything. You won't ever see any hips. She just pound them off of you. It's fabulous. What was that? I was size 5. There was nothing to pound off. But I did the show, and I get her knock on the door, and my father, someone opened the door, and it's Jack Benny. He wants to know if he could come in and say hi. I'm going, what? Jack Benny? This was a thrill. This was so he came in, and came into the dressing room. Mr. Benny, I'm so thrilled that you're here. You saw my show. He said, yes, terrific show. But I want to give you some advice. And the advice he gave me was, said, when you do the impressions, always tell them who you're going to do. I didn't, because I thought, well, these impressions are so good. If they don't know, they're stupid. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He said, you have to say who you're going to do. And he was right, because often I would do, happy days are here again, and happy nights, big Barbra Streisand thing. And then someone would yell out, do Barbra Streisand!
People are stupid.
And don't forget,
years later, I said, oh, sure. Oh, come on, Ro. Yeah, can we talk? Do Joan Rivers!
Yeah. And how about Bob Newhart?
Oh, yeah. So Bob said, thank you, Julian.
Oh, I'm here for you, Meryl.
Wonderful, baby. So he said to me, show was really great. But you're not just a singer. God bless him. He said, you want to talk to the audience. He said, I want you to talk right away. I said, right away? Not even one song? He said, yeah, talk to them. Just jive with them right away. He said, do it, you'll see. And he started me off as a comedian by giving me that direction, giving me the courage to do it. And I'm going to cry now. I'm going to get emotional.
Marilyn, you must have been incredible in Las Vegas during the days when Las Vegas was Vegas.
Thank you, darling.
And I'm sure opening for Rickles, you had full houses, standing room only.
Yes.
You must have been absolutely unbelievable. God, I wish I had seen you in person then. I've seen you a lot of times on television, and you were fantastic. There's no question.
Marilyn, how did you recharge your batteries if you're doing 2 shows a day? Was there something like your downtime? What did you do in Vegas to kind of keep your head above water in this crazy world?
I'm being recharged right now, actually. I'm plugged in. Darling, I'm always plugged in. Hello. I didn't do anything. I'm not a party girl. I'm a very nervous person. It weighs heavily on me that every show be great. That's a lot to carry on my shoulders. I got that from my parents. I had to be great all the time. And it's really tough because even though you're competing with yourself, it never leaves you how good you can be. Was this good enough? So you're always looking to make it better, be funnier. You're always learning and you're always refining it. I mean, just doing this afternoon, I was like, I can't move. I did 4 hours for this makeup. It was there's enough light in my office here to read you better. You can do that. Julian, get the horses. I mean, yeah.
Marilyn, how the hell did you
I didn't do anything. I want to answer this. If I don't answer his question, he's going to come back at me with this. But what happened? I was just lying there.
Either way, you're going to answer this question.
Yeah, I ate a sandwich. I was supine. My whole life is supine. Do you want to join me? Hello?
How did you get the national tour of Funny Girl? And how was it working with Jerome Robbins, Julie Stein? You working with the biggest and the best at this point. How did it happen?
My mother said, that's a good part for you. And it's done and it's Barbra Streisand. And no, that's a good part for you. So I was doing a lot of auditioning then. And there was a company that they wanted me to go to Australia or something. I didn't care. I don't want to go to Australia. I mean, everybody wants to be a star in their own village, Julian, in their own neighborhood. They went, oh, you're gonna get to England. You'll be the talk of the town. I was at the talk of the town. I didn't like it. I didn't understand them. They talked funny. They didn't know who Dinah Shaw was. And she was so wonderful. I loved her. She was fabulous. Mwah! They didn't even know who it was. So I want to be a star in your own hometown, But they say, oh, you're going to go to Hollywood. You're going to do the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion So I auditioned for Julie Stein. And I got up there. And it was, what did you dream about things like this? And I sang something from the show. And Julie Stein ran up on the stage. No, not on the stage, to the proscenium. He ran up and he said, you have to do the show. I mean, yeah, it was like, excuse me? Excuse me? You want me to what? We want you to do it. You've got to do the show. I said, okay.
But Marilyn, he was known as a pretty tough taskmaster. He wasn't.
Oh, yes, he was. I have Julie Stein stories, but they wanted me to do the show. So I said, my mother said, you do the show. And the agents, everyone is terribly, wildly excited and all this thing. And you're going into rehearsal October 7th, so it was very exciting. But actually, I had one more audition, and that was for Larry Kasher. Did you work with Larry, Julian, at all?
I knew who he was. I didn't know him.
Yeah. So
I knew his brother Al very well. I knew Al Kasher.
Al, right.
Yeah.
So Larry Kasher was the director of the National Company of Funny Girl, and they knew I could do all the comedy and I could sing the hell out of it. But could I act it? See, I went I was on stage with Larry, and quietly we did a reading of a few of the dramatic scenes, and that was the end. That was fine. And they said, okay, get into costume. That was it. So they wanted to make sure that I could handle every aspect of this very demanding role, and it's unfortunate that with the current productions of this, that the producers, I don't know who they are, don't realize what is demanded of it. I did an article for the New York Times the first time when they had this redhead pug nose to do the part. I forgot her name. Mark will remember the name that I forgot. It's about Fanny Bryce. I believe in respecting
Lauren Ambrose.
Lauren Ambrose, very talented lady. And I believe in respecting history. You know, if you're doing something about Henry VIII, you don't get a 27-year-old guy who weighs 140 pounds, you know, with it's not. Henry VIII had girth even in his 40s. I respect that because I'm a painter. I paint. And anyway, I like history. And I think you need to be true to who the person is. So if you're going to do Fanny Bryce, you need to do somebody who says, oh, darling, you know, who knows, who's from the neighborhood or can do it. I mean, Meryl Streep can do it. Whatever it is, she can do it. And I'm proud to say I can do a lot of different dialects and voices.
Marilyn,
that person has to be able
Marilyn,
to sing.
Who was your Nikki
score,
Arnstein?
The hardest score next to Evita. That's the hardest score for female voice.
Sure.
So my Nikki Arnstein was an actor named Anthony George. He did a series called Checkmate.
Did he go through the whole show with you?
I sound like Liza now. He was terrific, Mama. Anthony George, and then he went through the National Company with me. And then something happened in 1967 after the National Company. I was home, I unpacked, la-di-da. I can rest now. Maybe I'll find somebody, get married. Something will happen to me. And I get a call, and Carol Lawrence was going to do Funny Girl, Fanny Bryce, in the theater in the Round, Westbury Music Fair. And she had a spill on the Tonight Show. And she had a little accident and she couldn't do it. And my manager at that time was a guy named Jerry Weintraub. Remember him? Remember Jerry Weintraub?
Knew Jerry, yeah.
Good. So, I didn't, but never mind. Anyway, the thing is, so they called, she's got to come over right away. This is a theater in the Round, okay? I'd never seen a theater in the Round. I didn't know any of the cast members. I didn't know anything. I just knew the part. I had my costumes. My mom and we packed up. The car came and picked me up. I had about a 20-minute to half-hour talk-over rehearsal. And I went on, there were 3,000 people there. I went on and did the show, played Funny Girl. It was like a dream where it turned out to be a very great dream. It's like a dream that actors have where they're standing on the stage and they don't know the people they're with and they don't know what they're supposed to sing and they don't know. What I knew is I knew that role, it was like another skin to get into. So I knew that role so well that I just could turn it. It was like sleepwalking. I could play that part. It was a big hit, and I get page 2 of the Daily News, which was a big paper at that time when I did that. And I did 2 weeks, and I got a lot of money because Jerry Weintraub was brilliant at asking for a lot of money.
So forgive my naivety, Marilyn, but working in the theater and
you want me to forgive you
for forgive me, but when you're working in the theater and the Round, and I'm not a theater person, but I assume that you are working to an audience all around you, obviously. So you just can't fake forward. So your scene direction is entirely different, I assume.
Did you think up that question? That's a great question. I think I know where this is going. This is great. I had a big gag in the show. You want some chocolate? I had a big gag in the show. A pregnant bride, da, 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 da. And you turn this way a little bit, and the proscenium, everybody sees you. They see you're pregnant, 9 months, and they scream and they cheer, ba, ba, ba. Well, what happened here is I went out and I did da, 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 da. It's a pie, right? So what portion, you do the math, what portion of that audience saw that laugh? Just I don't know math, but it was not half. It was just, you know what I'm saying, guys?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah. So I said, well, I'm losing one of the biggest laughs of this show here.
How'd you fix it?
Okay. I'll tell you how I did it. One way was to stand on the periphery of the circle. Okay? Circle. Here's a circle. No. So if I stand at the edge, the people behind me won't see it. But 3/4 of the house will give me the laugh, right? Are you with me?
We're with you.
Yeah, we're with you.
So I didn't do that. I decided to stay center of the circle. And what I did is I did like this. You could see the belly. And they started, and I turned around slowly. And as I turned my body, the laugh would pick up.
We grow.
Do you get it? As I turned around, I picked up another part of the audience saw the pregnant bride until what? They were screaming. Wow.
Marilyn, I get that completely. I have a question for you.
Is that a good story? Do you like that story?
A great story.
Great story. Thank you for answering.
What kind of chocolate are you eating? What is that? You're making me hungry.
Well, I'm a casual type person.
I understand. Marilyn.
I'm eating a chocolate Easter egg.
Noshing, leave her alone.
So here's what I'd like to know, Marilyn. We're all show business people here who are interviewing you. We're producers.
No kidding.
Well,
no kidding.
Okay. All right. So here's what I want to know. I will tell you that from my point of view, the impressions you did were as great as anything I've ever seen. Guy or girl. They're fantastic. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
My question is this. Ever run into Barbara Streisand? Ever run into Liza? Ever run into Judy Garland?
Yes.
And tell me what their thoughts were.
Oh, God. Mark, come back. Barbara was a little bit upset because I wore sit over here. Yeah. Barbara was upset because I wore a, first of all, it's not that I crossed my eyes. It's that George Slaughter, he created Laughing. You know that?
Of course.
Okay. When I met him when I did my first television show, he said, "Come, I want you to come in the back room with me." I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "It's not bad." He said, "I want you to take your left eye, and I want you to follow my finger." He put his finger up, and I had to follow with my left eye, so it was just the left eye, not cross eye. Because when Barbara did those initial television shows, the lighting was not optimal, shall we say. And it would catch a strange look in her eye. So he taught me how to do that. What was your original question? Yes.
Well, the question was when you met Barbara, or you ran into Liza, or whoever these girls were.
She wasn't she wasn't so crazy. She was fascinated to meet me. Fascinated. Because she was doing Funny Girl on Broadway, and I was in rehearsal for Funny Girl. So she wanted to see who's this first woman who's stepping into my role kind of thing, And it was fascinating. She was flattering. She was a director, already a director. She noticed everything about me. She was very complimentary. She said, "Oh, you have a nice mouth. You have nice this, that." Very nice. She was listening to my album, and she said, "You know what? you're going to get a lot of presents, you know. I said, I'm going to get presents. She said, yeah, people are going to give you presents. You'll see. And she was giving me little pointers about it. And then we went to a movie together. And
what you see, Marilyn?
We went to see a thing called Marcello Mastroianni, Casanova 70. And we were in a limousine together. And Barbara Streisand said, it was in her mind. She said, whatever happened to this girl? You know, Edie this or Vicky that or something. She wanted to know how it fascinated her how someone can come and go so quickly in show business. And she was asking me and other people about it. And I got to understand that she had something in her that was just never going to happen to her. She was aware of it, that you could be here today and gone tomorrow. That's the nature of the business.
Marilyn, what's the key to doing Barbara? I watched a couple of your clips. Your hair is spot on. What made you turn into Barbara? What things you were doing? What were some of your
I
moments?
was not doing Barbara Streisand as an impression. I was doing Judy Garland and Ethel Merman. There's no business like show business, like no. It's good. I was doing all these other people, you know. Who else was I doing? Yeah. And my mother said, you have to do this girl, Barbara Streisand. I said, I don't know what it is. Started to watch her. And of course, George Slaughter gave me the thing with the eye. And I just got into the characters. Not everybody who does impressions can do every character. I mean, I can't do Taylor Swift, you know. Forget about it. Don't ask me.
I hope not. Marilyn, Dwight Hemian was a dear friend of ours, and he was part of our extended family.
Oh.
Tell me about Dwight. Dwight I didn't know him in his younger days, but I knew him when he got older. It's great.
You want to know about Dwight?
Well, sure, I can tell you things you tell me, of course.
Dwight Hemian and Gary Smith, just the best of variety television that ever was and ever will be.
You're right.
Because they approached it as art, and they had the ability to do that. And Orson Welles did one of the shows, and he was on. My mind is jumping around, but Dwight and Gary, I was on stage as Mae West. I was on set, and Orson was watching. He was watching me, and the playback was on the set, so I could hear the music, and I was singing, and doing, and the guys of Mae West, you see Mae West, and Gary went over, whispered in my ear, do Judy Garland, do it for Orson. I said, now in the costume of Mae West. He said, yeah, do it. And I said, the night is better, the star, all because of the man that got away. And Orson popped out of his folding chair, and there was a lot of him to pop out of that chair. He was, yeah, it was like one of the. Yeah, it was a highlight of my life, you know, of my career, to have had that experience with Orson. But I don't think I'm answering your question. I think I went off on a tangent.
Well, that's okay.
Barbara?
But the thing about Dwight with Barbara was he started with her and called me Barbara, and the specials where she broke.
But, you know, that day when we went to that movie together, and something happened. I thought, oh, she's so sweet, and she was really darling. It was before she did any movies, and she was interested in me, and I was, of course, a great fan of hers, and doing the impression and so forth. And I remember we're standing there before we went in to see the movie, and a member of the press came over, and they directed their question to moi. The new girl on the block, right? The new kid on the block. And I'm standing right next to Barbara, and I tell you, as if it were yesterday, her whole body froze like that. She felt that it was, what would you call that? I saw right away that I had lost her, that we were not going to be sisters or best pals. She felt very threatened that I had no control who was going to be interviewed or who they were going to ask questions of. But I was the new kid on the block. They wanted to ask me. Oh, that was the end of that. That was very telling. And whatever happens. I'm sorry.
Interesting. It's how interesting that is. I mean, it happens.
Oh, okay.
So many people carry things like that. I have a question for you that's very key to me, and I'm sure to everybody else. When you broke through, what was that like for you? When you knew got to a level that you, God knows, maybe never expected to get to. Well, you did. You did. You became Marilyn Michaels. When did you break?
When did that happen? What does he know? I was 40 years old.
When did it happen for you? What was the moment that you felt?
It happened so many times. Okay. It happened so many times. Every time I'm going to cry again now. Every time I stood next to Dean Martin and we had that chemistry, it happened. Every time I worked with Sammy Davis, and I worked with Sammy more than anyone.
Too bad he didn't have talent. Just kidding. What was that like? What did it feel like? What does that feel like, Marilyn?
What does it feel like?
Yes.
Oh.
That good, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's thrilling, you know. It's something in your head is saying, "Hey, this is it. Hello. You're not going to be a typewriter after all." My bubby said, "Let her be a typewriter." Typist? Never mind.
Okay. Tell us, Marilyn, a little bit about.
Julian, there you are. I missed you.
Here I am. I'm back. I let my friends talk. Tell me a little bit about going to London and doing the Copycat show and working with Rich Little and Frank Gorshin, but also incredible stars came on that show, like Orson Welles and Tony Curtis and
Tony Curtis.
Yeah,
Tony Curtis. I can't do Tony Curtis. My dear, he's gone. Oh, Fred Travellino was just a jewel. And geez, he did Tony Curtis, had a way of doing Tony Curtis and Frank Sinatra. That was amazing. But Tony Curtis had a bad experience working with Marilyn Monroe. And he liked me. And Some Like It Hot, right? But he liked me, and he saw that I'm a different Marilyn entirely. What I was doing with Tony, I was doing a bit of a really hysterical bit. You can see it's on YouTube, where I played Betty Davis. And we went in and out of the doors, and then I'd go out, and George Kirby would come in, and he'd be dressed as Betty Davis. I love you, darling. We'd go, I love you, darling. Mwah. I love you. Mwah. Mwah. Back and forth like that. So Tony got to calling me to differentiate Sweet Marilyn. He called me Sweet Marilyn. So this meant a lot to me. It really did.
I'm interested also in how you described working with Raymond Burr, because that was rather interesting to me.
Julian, that in itself is funny.
Oh, I did this thing with Burr. This was so great. I played, his wife, his Della or something, and
Della Street. Della Street on Perry Mason.
Yes.
That's his secretary.
Much younger than Ray at the time, and so forth. He was a darling guy. He was the sweetest little pussycat. He'd come in, you wouldn't the Ironsides, and he played the heavy, and he'd come in wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And then he'd take me and bounce me on his knee. And he was just having a wonderful time. Then he did the Perry Mason. And Perry, I can't find my slippers, darling. Do you know where my slippers are? And he said, where did you leave them last? I can't remember. He said, where did you put them? And he starts to grill me. and he starts to grill me, and I lose it. That was the bit, working with Ray. It was fabulous. Little did I know that eventually I would marry a litigator, and he'd do the same fucking thing. Oh.
Marilyn, you know the great line that Milton Berle used. They were roasting Arnold Schwarzenegger at the Friars Club, and Milton said to Arnold, "Arnold, you are acting what Raymond Burr was to pole vaulting." That's what he said.
Marilyn, you have aced all of the impressions we've heard. Has there ever been an impression that was too tough to do for you? Are there ones where you give it your best, but it doesn't quite take? Have you ever had that experience?
You know, when I did, at the time I did the Copycats, I mean, I'm in England. I'm living in England, and they had the Norman Lear of All in the Family on, and they needed me to do Edith. I was the only girl in the show. They needed an Edith. I didn't know what she sounded like, anything. So everybody would come over to me. George Kirby, Rich Little, Frank Gorshin. I did a lot of great stuff with him. And they would each do, oh, she's like that. And she's like that. And they would all give me their version of Edith Bunker. So by the time, it was like I learned it from osmosis. But by the time I did the show, I said, "Oh, what she?" You know, of course, I eventually got to the States and worked with the Gene Stapleton on Mike Douglas show, and I worked at the impression and got it better, much better.
And it was interesting. Yeah. It was interesting too, because that wasn't Gene Stapleton's voice. She did an imitation herself of how Edith Bunker should talk.
Yeah, exactly. She created the character, just as actors create personas. They create characters. I mean, Bette Midler, oh my dears, oh, I don't know. I don't think she goes around talking that way. No, but that is her stage persona.
You ever idolize any performer when you were a kid?
Well, yes, Judy Garland, yes. Yeah. And I loved Judy. I loved Lena Horne, and then later on, I was quite taken with Barbra Streisand. I thought she brought an ability to get to the essence of what the song was about as an actress, which the pop singers of the time would do. They would sing an easygoing singing, Dinah Shore, so wonderful, Darth Day, Peggy Lee. My favorite, always adored her because she was an actress.
But Sinatra was the actor, and Judy Garland was the actress, and you were the actress. There were people who could do it, but they were the minority. You're right. They were the minority.
Well, it's a mindset. But when somebody comes along who changes the style, for instance, beauty, there was a beauty has got to be like that. The nose has to be up, the ears this size and everything. There's got to be an equanimity of features. You know, beautiful women, everything is in the right place. They were, dubbed, the angels dubbed them with great beauty. But then somebody comes along and is a little bit different and changes that whole thing for decades after, and Barbra Streisand is one like that. Not the only, I thought that Barbara Stanwyck was a great actress and not a beauty, I mean, her lips didn't move and the nose was down on the lips and the eyes were together, and great actress. So thank heavens, Hollywood from time to time is able to identify.
Marilyn, I asked Dwight once, what makes a star? I said, Jimmy Durante is a star without question. And he said, there are a different shade, SHADE. There are different shades. There's something going on. that's just a little bit different. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. It's an indefinable certain something, baby. And we don't know what it is, because if you could, then you could bottle it, right?
Yes. It's
That's
very
true.
Well, you're in Las Vegas and you're opening for Roger Miller, and Arthur had asked about
Oh,
meeting some of the people. Well, there's a big party being held, and
yeah.
Roger Miller wants to know if you're going. So let's talk about that party a bit.
Roger, oh, he was wonderful. What a genius. He was a genius. And he took me on it, and we went on a date. And I don't know, I was 23 years. No, I was 22. And 22, I was a virgin, the oldest virgin in the 22 years. He took me, he wanted to give me a country feeling. So he took me to Central Park. We should go on a hansom cab. The horse should take us around. You know, horses do what they want to do. But it was a wonderful feeling. And it was, he was brilliant. Then we worked together in Vegas. He said, there's a party. Judy Garland's having a party tonight. Do you want to? I said, yeah. I wanted to meet her. You know, I was going to meet my idol. And it was very sad. It was very sad because Judy was the hostess. And she was present. She was there, but she wasn't present. More like that. She was very fragile, like out of it, you know. There was like a scrim over her. I didn't know what it was. I got to meet her, but it wasn't what I hoped it would be. I'm sure she was having some problems, some difficulties.
But her gift was enormous. Her gift was unbelievable, and no one has ever gotten close to her as you did her. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Marilyn, when you're together with fellow impressionists like Rich Little, like Frank.
Frank was great.
When you guys get together, when you hang out together, do you do impressions with each other, or do you get into that?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah. On the plane going from New York to Toronto for the first copycat show that I was going to do, for the first special, John Biner was sitting next to Rich Little, and I think they were both doing Jimmy Cagney or Ed Sullivan or something, and the people were freaking out. They thought that it was Jimmy Cagney and Ed Sullivan, you know? So I thought, yes, absolutely. We would do the voices for each other and discuss the voices with each other. As a matter of fact, I got a very nice birthday message from Scott. Me with the names. A wonderful impressionist. And he said, we had done a commercial, and I was pregnant with my son, with Mark, and I was in the 9th month, and I was going to have the baby. And what happened is they wanted me to do Katharine Hepburn. So, gosh, oh golly gee, I was going to do Katharine Hepburn. It was so fabulous. She was so well. Oh, fabulous. I said, do you want the young Katharine Hepburn? The colorless arms, the colorless arms. Oh, do you want the older one? Spencer was great. Fuck. Anyway, so I didn't know which they wanted me to do. So, yeah. So, well, you get.
Here's my question. Both Arthur and I, over the years, talk about Catskills on Broadway. It meant a lot to us. Now, this was Freddie Roman's idea to do this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it something that you were quite excited to do, or did you have reticence about it at all?
Well, I didn't have reticence about being on Broadway. I remember when he called me, I was in the laundry room pressing my son's slacks. for the I don't know what it was, the prom or something, Mark. And I'm pressing the slacks, and he said, "Would you like to be in a Broadway show?" The best things have happened to me when people just call me up out of the blue, like you calling me up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I said yeah, and they wanted to name the show. It's going to be a review. There's going to be 4 of us. I'm going to be the only gal again, and what were they going to call it? And I would have preferred them to call it something other than Catskills on Broadway, although it worked out great for them because it worked. It was a big hit. They made a lot of money and got awards and things like that. But I would have wanted something not that. I don't know what.
Mm.
Well, on that, you won the Outer Critics Award. You won the Drama League Award. So it was a pretty good gig for over a year.
Yeah. When I'm going to forget something. What I found is that when I did Copycats, and this is on YouTube, I did at one point, they gave me this great thing to do. 8 ladies, and one of them, I was with Steve Lawrence, and I was doing Edie Gourmet with Steve. So when you see it, you see Steve and Edie, and Steve didn't know it was a surprise. So I do all these Eartha Kitt and this one and this one, and then Diana Ross, and then I come out as Edie Gourmet, and he was trying to hold it together. But you have to see, he's like, you can just see his body language. It was quite something. As I was doing an Edie, by the way, you asked me how they take the Edie. I did it at the Waldorf, and she was sitting on the dais, and they had to catch her. She nearly fell off the dais. She was very, very excited that I did.
Marilyn, it might interest you to know that Dwight Hemian thought that the greatest girl singer he had ever heard was Edie Gourmet, not Barbara.
Well, he was right. Well, he was right. I mean, listen, I'm happy you're saying that. That is so cool for you to say that, because we are. I didn't even know that Dwight felt that. I mean, Dwight.
Well, he did. He did a lot of shows with Steve and Edie, and he did Streisand.
Yes. Yeah, and so he had me doing Edie a lot, but he never confessed that to me or anything like that. But that you say, who did you absolutely adore? And it was, yes, Edie Gourmet. I would say that I learned the kind of singing that I wanted to do more from Edie Gourmet than anybody, than Judy or anyone.
She was awesome.
I mean,
yeah.
It's just today, if you want to be a singer, you just have to be naked. If you're naked, you can be a hit.
Yeah.
It's
really.
Funny how in the heyday of you doing your impressions, there were so many different personalities with so many different dimensions. And maybe this is just being too superficial about it, but today it seems to me that we don't have the personalities we once had, the distinct, all the singers sound the same. Even the actors, which have always been a kind of a right place to do impressions. I mean, who do you do today besides Christopher Walken and De Niro? I mean, is it my impression?
Come here. Huh? I have someone who does a really good Christopher Walken. Would you stick your head and do it? Just do it.
In the family.
Everyone does a Christopher Walken impression. Can you see me? Am I in the frame?
We see him.
Yeah, there you are.
Because I can't see without my glasses.
Do it.
Well, I've been doing a Christopher Walken for years. Years.
Do De Niro.
Oh, De Niro. Oh, okay.
Do De Niro.
Hey, how you doing?
That's great without talking.
How did this happen? Oh, this is for Julian.
If she's giving you any problems, let me know. Call me. We don't want a situation here. I'll take care of it.
Outstanding.
Julian, do Woody.
Woody Allen.
Julian, are you there? Where are you, Julian?
I'm here.
I'm 92 now, and my analyst says I'm finally starting to make progress. It's been a journey in 20 years. I'll finally be cleared, medically.
That's great.
That's great.
How did this happen? Give me your book.
The apple does not far fall from the tree.
Yeah.
Now,
Marilyn,
this
do you
book,
do any dates?
Sunshine
Do you still-
Road. Wait a minute, hold it. Hey, bada-bum, bada-bum.
Okay.
Your producers, my son just wrote a brilliant, it's original. It's not comedy. The book he wrote with me that Julian held up, that's pure comedy. This is sci-fi, it's kinky, it's violent. What did I do wrong? I'm a Jewish mother.
Hold
What
it
did I
up.
do wrong?
Hold it up higher.
Called
Marilyn.
Oligopolis, and
How do
it
you
is
pr- Oligo-
fantastic. What?
Congratulations,
It's a 4-part
Mark.
Netflix.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
here it is. If they're smart, they'll read it.
Yeah.
Julian, you have to read it. Promise me. Where did you go?
I read.
It's there.
Listen, I read the first book. I'll read the second.
I know you will.
Marilyn,
Oh, wow.
Marilyn, we've come to the end of our show. Unfortunately, we could talk to you for another hour, and we want to
You
have
could
you back.
indeed.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you back. You've been
Well, let
terrific.
me tell you one thing because Dwight had me, and I'll say this and then I will say no more. Besides being a phenomenal director, was a great kisser. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We're gonna-
you're right.
we're
Look,
gonna
they're
turn it
laughing.
over.
To get you to laugh. It's really, I thought I would never get you of all of them.
Good-looking guy. Was he good-looking? Oh, what a good-looking guy he was.
Yes, it was good looking too. Everything.
We're going to turn it over to our producer and announcer, Mike Faber. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Steve. And of course, thank you, Marilyn, for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
You've reached the end of this episode of the Tales from Hollywoodland podcast. Always remember, we couldn't do this without you. We want to hear from you, so please write us anytime at talesfromhollywoodland@gmail.com. Remember, you could also find us wherever fine podcasts are found, and now you can even find us up on our YouTube channel. If you made it this far into the episode, why not subscribe and give us a thumbs up? Or if you're listening to us, please give us 5 stars. And if you didn't really enjoy us, give us 5 sarcastic stars. Why not?
Okay, I will.
Okay.
All right. Don't beg. I'll give it to you.
If you're into social media, please check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Before we get out of here, let's check with the guys and see what's happening on their podcast this week. Julian, who are you talking to this week?
This week is Chris Sarandon, who, of course, co-starred with Pacino in Dog Day Afternoon, was terrific in The Princess Bride, and a very interesting man growing up in a Greek restaurant in West Virginia. How's that?
That is awesome. Steve, what's cooking over on Saturday night at the movies?
Author Bob Hertzberg has written several film books. We're going to be talking about Hollywood and the military bureaucracy, focusing on movies and some of their historical context, including From Here to Eternity and Patton. And he's a wonderful guest, has a great history of writing about the film business, and he's a Brooklyn native.
That is cool. Really, really cool. Of course, on behalf of Steve, Arthur, and Julian, thanks again for listening. This is your producer and announcer, Mike Faber. We'll see you here next time on Tales from Hollywoodland. Your Hollywood adventure starts right here.
Yes, hello. Let's talk about the Flopcast,
Every week, we give podcast listeners a chance to come and join us in Chickentown.
where we talk about Saturday morning cartoons, comics and science fiction conventions, music and concert reports, 70s and 80s pop culture, and for no good reason, chickens.
Boy, we're weird.
Oh, we are ridiculous.
We're proud members of the ESO Network, and you can find us at flopcast.net. This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.